The bitter wind whipped through downtown Austin that December morning, carrying with it the kind of cold that seeps straight into your bones. 13-year-old Marcus stood at the bus stop, wrapped in his prized possession, a thick winter jacket his mom had saved up 3 months to buy him. That's when he saw her. An elderly woman huddled on the bench, shivering violently in nothing but a thin sweater, her weathered hands clutched tightly against her chest. Without hesitation, Marcus began unzipping his jacket, but before he could hand it over, a deep, familiar voice stopped him in his tracks. "Sold up, Tid. What are you doing?" Joe Rogan stood there, his presence commanding attention even in the early morning gloom. The podcast legend had been on his way to his studio when something about the scene caught his eye. What happened next would transform not just one life, but an entire community. Before we continue, if you enjoy stories about real acts of kindness and the power of community, make sure to click that subscribe button. This is the best way for you to support our work. Thank you very much, and let's continue. The morning had started like any other for Marcus. He'd woken up to the sound of his mother, Teresa, getting ready for her early shift at the diner where she'd worked for the past 8 years. Their small apartment, nestled in a modest complex on the east side of Austin, held the lingering warmth of the oatmeal she prepared for him before leaving. As he pulled on his jacket, the one she'd surprised him with after months of secret overtime shifts, he'd thought about how lucky he was, despite their struggles. Now, standing at the bus stop with Joe Rogan's intense gaze fixed upon him, Marcus felt his heart racing. He'd seen Joe's podcast clips on YouTube, heard his voice echoing from car speakers and phone screens all over Austin, but nothing had prepared him for the man's actual presence. The way he seemed to fill the space around him with an energy that was both intimidating and oddly comforting. "Marcus, sir," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's freezing." His eyes darted to the elderly woman, who had now noticed their presence and was trying to make herself smaller on the bench, embarrassment evident on her face. The woman's hands, he noticed, bore the kind of calluses that spoke of a lifetime of work. Hands that had probably helped countless others before finding themselves in need of help themselves. Joe's expression softened as he took in the scene, his eyes moving from Marcus's half-unzipped jacket to the woman's thin sweater. The morning light caught the frost forming on the bench beside her, each crystal a tiny reminder of the dangerous cold. "What's your name, buddy?" he asked, stepping closer, his breath visible in the frigid air. Sarah Henderson's story spilled out in fragments between shivers. She'd been a nurse at Del Seaton Medical Center for over 3 decades, the kind of dedicated professional who remembered her patients' grandchildren's names and worked double shifts during emergencies without complaint. But life had thrown her a cruel curveball. First came the cancer diagnosis, then the mounting medical bills that her insurance wouldn't fully cover. The predatory loan she'd taken out to stay afloat had seemed like her only option at the time. Now, a week after losing her apartment, she found herself wondering how someone could go from saving lives to barely being able to save themselves. Joe removed his own jacket, a high-end winter coat that probably cost more than Marcus's mom made in a month, and gently draped it over Sarah's shoulders. The gesture was smooth, natural, like something he'd done 1,000 times before. But it was what he did next that would set in motion a chain of events nobody could have predicted. Pulling out his phone, he made a call that would change everything. "Young Jamie, I need you to push everything back an hour. We've got something more important to handle right now." He turned to Marcus, who was still standing there with his jacket half unzipped, the morning bus rumbling past unnoticed. "Put that back on, kid. You've got school to think about, but I want you to come with us." The next few hours unfolded like a dream. Joe's Tesla, with its pristine leather interior that seemed to absorb the morning chill, carried them through Austin's awakening streets. Marcus sat in the back, watching as Joe and Sarah talked in the front. Not as a celebrity and a homeless woman, but as 2 human beings sharing stories about life's unexpected turns. "You know what I've learned doing my podcast?" Joe said as they pulled up to the Four Seasons Hotel. "Everyone's got a story that could break your heart, but it's not the heartbreak that matters. It's what happens next." The hotel staff's expressions shifted from surprise to understanding as Joe explained the situation. Within minutes, Sarah was checked into a suite that cost more per night than her old monthly rent. But it wasn't just about the luxury. It was about restoring dignity. Joe made sure of that. Over breakfast in the hotel restaurant, Eggs Benedict for Sarah, her first hot meal in days. The conversation deepened. Marcus learned that Sarah had specialized in pediatric care, that she'd once saved a child's life by noticing symptoms other nurses had missed. Joe listened intently, his podcast host's instinct for compelling stories merging with genuine human concern. "You know it's crazy?" Joe said, setting down his coffee cup. "We've got this amazing healthcare system that can save lives in incredible ways, but we can't figure out how to keep the people who run it from falling through the cracks themselves." That observation sparked something in Joe's mind. During a phone call that lasted through their second round of coffee, he connected with several local business leaders he knew. By the time Sarah finished her breakfast, the foundations of what would become the Warm Hearts Initiative were already taking shape. But the story runs deeper than just that morning's events. As news of Joe's impromptu rescue spread through Austin's tight-knit community, others began sharing their own stories. There was the retired teacher living in her car after a reverse mortgage went wrong, the former firefighter whose PTSD had led to job loss and homelessness, the young family sleeping in their minivan after a medical emergency drained their savings. Each story strengthened Joe's resolve to create something lasting. The Warm Hearts Initiative evolved from a simple emergency housing program into a comprehensive support system. Local businesses, inspired by Marcus's initial act of kindness, began offering job training and employment opportunities. Medical professionals, moved by Sarah's story, volunteered their services for free health screenings. Marcus's mother, Teresa, found herself drawn into the initiative's orbit as well. When Joe learned about her years of struggling to make ends meet while raising Marcus alone, he recognized another opportunity to create meaningful change. The diner where she worked became one of the initiative's first corporate partners, implementing a profit-sharing program for long-term employees and establishing a scholarship fund for their children. "You know what amazes me about all this?" Teresa said during a community meeting, her voice strong despite her natural shyness. "My son thought he was just going to give away his jacket. He didn't know he was going to help start a movement. But that's how love works, isn't it? It multiplies." The initiative's growth brought challenges as well as triumphs. Joe found himself navigating the complex world of nonprofit organizations, zoning laws, and social services. He dedicated entire podcast episodes to discussing homelessness and community responsibility, bringing in experts but always returning to the human element, the stories of people like Sarah, whose lives demonstrated both the fragility of financial security and the power of community support. Sarah's recovery became a template for others in similar situations. Within 6 months, she was not only stable in her new apartment but had become an integral part of the initiative's healthcare program. Her experience as both a medical professional and someone who had faced homelessness gave her unique insight into the needs of those seeking help. "The hardest part of being homeless isn't the physical discomfort," she explained during one of her regular appearances on Joe's podcast. "It's the feeling that you've become invisible. That's why what Marcus did was so powerful. He saw me, really saw me, and then Joe took that moment of connection and turned it into something that could help thousands of others be seen too." Marcus's role in the initiative evolved as well. Despite his young age, Joe made sure he had a voice in the organization's development. Regular meetings at the podcast studio became opportunities for Marcus to share his perspective on how to reach younger community members and develop programs that could prevent families from falling into crisis. "The kid's got an old soul," Joe often said to his listeners. "He understands something that a lot of adults forget, that helping others isn't about grand gestures or complicated solutions. Sometimes it's just about being willing to give up your own jacket when someone else is cold." The initiative's 1-year anniversary celebration became a testament to the power of that simple truth. Held in a downtown park on another cold December morning, the event brought together hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by the program. Food trucks offered free meals, medical professionals provided checkups, and local businesses conducted on-site job interviews. But the most powerful moment came when Marcus and Sarah took the stage together. The contrast between that morning at the bus stop and now was striking. Sarah, healthy and confident in a new winter coat of her own, and Marcus, a bit taller but with the same gentle spirit that had prompted him to help a stranger. "I used to think that being strong meant handling everything on your own," Sarah told the crowd, her voice carrying across the hushed park. "But true strength is being willing to help others, and being willing to accept help when you need it. That morning, a young boy taught me about strength, and Joe Rogan showed me how one act of kindness could grow into something that changes an entire community." The impact of the Warm Hearts Initiative continued to expand beyond Austin. Other cities began implementing similar programs, adapting the model to their own community's needs. Joe used his platform to share success stories and challenge other influential figures to take action in their own communities. The initiative also sparked changes in local policy. Austin City Council, impressed by the program's success, began implementing new approaches to homelessness prevention and support. The Marcus model, as it came to be known, emphasized early intervention and community involvement over traditional institutional solutions. 2 years after that fateful morning, the bus stop where it all began was transformed into the first of several Warm Heart stations, covered waiting areas equipped with heating in winter, cooling in summer, and information about available community resources. A small plaque tells the story of Marcus and his jacket, reminding passengers that sometimes the smallest actions can have the biggest impact. Joe Rogan's podcast continues to evolve, but he always keeps a special place for stories from the Warm Hearts Initiative. "You know what I love about this?" he often says to his guests. "It proves that real change doesn't have to start with politicians or billionaires. It can start with a kid at a bus stop who just wants to help someone stay warm." The story of Marcus, Sarah, and Joe becomes more than just a tale of charity or good fortune. It becomes a reminder that within every community lies the potential for transformation, waiting to be unleashed by simple acts of human kindness. It shows that sometimes the most powerful changes start not with grand plans or complex strategies, but with one person choosing to see another's need and taking action to help. As the initiative continues to grow and evolve, its core message remains unchanged. Compassion isn't complicated. Sometimes, it's as simple as seeing someone in need and deciding to help. Everything else, all the structure, support, and systemic change, can grow from that single moment of human connection. And it all started with a kid, a jacket, and a podcast legend who understood that sometimes the biggest impacts come from amplifying the smallest acts of kindness. In the end, that's what the Warm Hearts Initiative really celebrates, and not just the power of giving, but the way that one simple act of compassion can ripple outward, touching lives and transforming communities in ways that no one could have predicted. As Joe often reminds his listeners, the real heroes aren't always the ones with the biggest platforms or the most resources. Sometimes they're just kids with big hearts, willing to give up their jackets on cold mornings. Our job is to notice those moments and help them grow into something bigger. The third year of the Warm Hearts Initiative brought unprecedented growth and evolution. Joe's vision expanded beyond immediate assistance to address the root causes of homelessness in the community. The initiative launched an educational program in local schools, inspired by Marcus's story, teaching young people about empathy, community responsibility, and financial literacy. Marcus, now 16, became a regular speaker at these school programs. His natural ability to connect with his peers, combined with his firsthand experience of how small actions could create massive change, made him an incredibly effective advocate. "I never planned to be standing here talking to you," he would tell audiences of students. "I just saw someone who needed help and did what felt right. But that's how change happens, one person, one moment, one choice at a time." The initiative's success attracted attention from major philanthropists and organizations across the country. Joe leveraged these connections carefully, always ensuring that the program's grassroots spirit remained intact. "The power of this movement," he explained during a special podcast episode celebrating the 3rd anniversary, "is that it started with genuine human connection. We can scale up, we can expand, but we can never lose that foundation of simple human kindness." Sarah's role continued to evolve as well. She established a mentoring program within the initiative, pairing medical professionals with individuals struggling to navigate the healthcare system. Her own experience of falling through the cracks made her uniquely qualified to identify potential problems before they became crises. "When I think back to that morning at the bus stop," Sarah reflected during a community gathering. I remember feeling like I had reached the end of my story. Instead, I was actually at the beginning of a new chapter, and not just for me, but for our entire community. That's what the Warm Hearts Initiative does. It helps people rewrite their stories. Teresa's journey paralleled the initiative's growth. From her start as a diner waitress to becoming the organization's operations director, she embodied the program's mission of empowerment and transformation. Under her leadership, the initiative developed a comprehensive employment program that helped participants rebuild their careers while maintaining their dignity. The ripple effects of that cold December morning continued to spread in unexpected ways. Local businesses that had initially partnered with the initiative reported improved employee morale and customer loyalty. Schools implementing the Warm Hearts curriculum saw decreased bullying incidents and increased student engagement in community service. Joe made sure to document these successes on his podcast, but he always brought the conversation back to the human element. You know what's beautiful about this? He would say to his guests. We're not just helping people find homes or jobs. We're helping rebuild the connections that make a community strong. Every time someone shares their story, every time someone reaches out to help, we're strengthening those bonds. The initiative's impact on Austin's homeless population was significant. Within 3 years, the program had helped over 2,000 individuals find stable housing and employment. But the numbers only told part of the story. The real success could be seen in the transformed lives, the restored dignity, and the renewed sense of community throughout the city. Marcus's original bus stop became something of a pilgrimage site for visitors interested in the initiative. The Warm Heart Station installed there served as a reminder that transformative change could start anywhere, at any moment. During winter months, the station staff made sure to keep a supply of warm jackets available, a direct tribute to the act of kindness that started it all. As the initiative continued to grow, Joe remained committed to preserving its core values. Success isn't just about the number of people we help, he explained during a landmark podcast episode. It's about maintaining the spirit of that first morning, the simple human connection between a kid who cared enough to give up his jacket and a woman who needed more than just warmth. The story of the Warm Hearts Initiative became a testament to the power of individual action and community response. It proved that sustainable change doesn't always require complex solutions or massive resources. Sometimes it just needs one person willing to take that first step, and others ready to help build the path forward. Today, when people ask about the secret to the initiative's success, Joe points to the plaque at that first Warm Hearts station. Read that story, he tells them. That's all you need to know. A kid saw someone in need and decided to help. I saw that kid and decided to help. Others saw us helping and decided to join in. That's how real change happens. One heart warming another, again and again, until the whole world feels a little less cold. The impact of the Warm Hearts Initiative continues to evolve in unexpected ways. Universities have begun studying what they call the Rogan Marcus model of community transformation, analyzing how spontaneous acts of kindness can be amplified into sustainable social change. Business schools use the initiative as a case study in social entrepreneurship, demonstrating how authentic human connection can drive successful community programs. Marcus, now preparing for college with a full scholarship from the initiative's educational fund, has started mentoring younger students in the program. The most important lesson I've learned, he shares during youth leadership workshops, is that you don't need to wait until you're older, richer, or more powerful to make a difference. You just need to be willing to act when you see someone in need. Sarah, whose health and spirit have fully recovered, has become a powerful advocate for healthcare reform, testifying before state legislators about the importance of protecting medical professionals from the very circumstances she faced. Her story, amplified by Joe's platform, has helped push forward new legislation protecting healthcare workers from predatory lending practices. Teresa's transformation from struggling single mother to community leader has inspired similar programs across the country. She regularly consults with other cities looking to implement their own versions of the Warm Hearts Initiative, always emphasizing the importance of maintaining the human connection at the core of the program. Joe continues to use his podcast to spotlight the initiative's success stories, but he's careful to maintain the focus on the ground-level impact. You know what still gets me? he reflected during a recent episode. Every morning, I drive past that bus stop where it all began, and I see people helping each other, not because they're part of a program, not because they're looking for recognition, but because that's what humans do when we're at our best. We help each other. The Warm Hearts Initiative has become more than just a homeless assistance program or a community outreach project. It's a living testament to the power of human connection, a reminder that the smallest actions can spark the biggest changes, and proof that when compassion meets opportunity, extraordinary things can happen. As winter approaches each year in Austin, the initiative organizes the special ceremony at the original bus stop. People gather to share stories, offer help, and remember how a simple act of kindness between a boy and a stranger changed their community forever. And every year, without fail, new jackets appear on the bench, anonymous gifts left by those who understand that sometimes the warmest heart is the one willing to help a stranger stay warm.